All right. So I'm here with E-Roc, who's about to release a new album this Saturday night in Northeast Minneapolis. And E-Roc, I just wanted to get a little background. When did you start making music like that you would consider to be music?
So I just started doing music. I've been doing music my whole life, really. Like, my mom always said that I was singing as soon as I could talk, so I always did that. I've always sang. I did choir and stuff throughout my early years, and did choir and band in high school, and went to college. When I went to University of Wisconsin River Falls, I was actually majoring in music education. But that's when I met Von Sage, and he's the one that got me into this whole scene, the whole hip-hop scene. And that's, he brought me out to a show at Big V's, which is now Midway Saloon.
Yeah. Yep.
He brought me out to a show at Big V's, and that's actually where I met Mookie as well, and then we did the same night. And that is kind of where I got started. I got up on stage with Vaughn as his quote-unquote hype man. I wasn't very good. But that's when I started. I met Vaughn in 2016, and I started making my own music in 2017. Like I said, 3 years in the making of this album. I'm so happy that it's finally out, and that I get to share it with all of you guys, and that everybody who's coming is coming tonight. Shout out to everybody that's performing tonight. I appreciate every single one of you. You didn't have to do this, but you took the time out of your schedule to come do this for me, and I greatly appreciate every single one of you, and I'm so happy to be here tonight and finally putting out the album. I released my first song called Toxic Love, which is on SoundCloud.
Okay.
Still to this day, in March of 2016, or 2017.
Right on, right on. So in your younger years growing up and stuff, who were your inspirations? I know that you dabble in more than just hip hop. Like, I know you like to rock out a bit too. I kind of saw that in some of my research. So what were some of your influences growing up that you really got, attached to lyrically or musically?
Yeah, so growing up, my dad was in cover bands and his own original bands, and so I listened to a lot of that stuff. So I grew up on Motley Crue and Ozzy and stuff like that. So I'd say that probably influenced a lot of stuff. And as I grew up, getting into middle school, I started listening to some of the heavier stuff. I kind of did a whole. I talked about this before in some other interviews, but I did kind of did a whole 180 where I went from the 80s hair metal stuff to deathcore.
Okay, right on. A few of us made that change around then.
So I started listening to bands like Asking Alexandria and Chelsea Grin, Born of Osiris.
Oh yeah.
And then I Cattle Decapitation here and there.
Sure.
So that was, that's kind of, nowadays that's where I take a lot of my inspiration from, is a lot of the metal stuff.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So then on the hip hop side and stuff, do you have any people that you look up to, from growing up?
Growing up I didn't listen to much hip hop. I listened to a couple songs here and there in my teenage years. But those were honestly the main ones I listened to were Eminem and Tech Nine.
Okay, right on. And both have very large catalogs, so
yeah, those were the two main hip hop artists I listened to growing up.
What was it like taking the stage that first time as more of a hip hop artist, considering your youth being, Motley Crue and stuff like that?
It was nerve-wracking for sure.
Right.
Getting up in front of, it wasn't a ton of people. My first show, it had 10, 12, 15 maybe people there. I had never written my own music before this, and so getting up and performing my own stuff that I wrote in front of people. It's like, oh wow, this is something that it was a new experience.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody, that's aspiring, that may have their first chance to get on stage, with their art?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Honestly, that was my whole, that was my whole mantra behind it. Was just, get up, you get on stage, and it's going to be over before you know it. I guess another piece of advice that I would have is just don't get fucked up before you get on stage.
Yeah, a lot of people, artists especially, they tend to lean towards the, if I get a little bit loose before the show, it's going to be a better show. Do you have anything to say, to young artists about that? Like,
to an extent, I think, I'm not going to say don't get fucked up, because I can't make people's decisions for them.
Absolutely.
But I would, if you want to get a little buzz going, kind of loosen up a little bit, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Sure. Yeah. It's the same as people having a Saturday night out at a local watering hole, you know? So other than that, how do you find, like, when you prepare for a show, like, how do you find your center or your piece with all the chaos going on right before the show, when you got, sound check and you got, doors open an hour before it starts and people are piling in, and I know you guys are either in the green room or backstage preparing, and you personally, aside from the ritual of the Ice King crew, do you have anything that you do to sort of mentally prepare before you go on stage?
I like to have a cigarette before I go on stage.
Nice.
Just, because I'm out there, just kind of
sort
relax.
Of decompress as you exhale, and
just relax. And then you get on stage and you give it your all.
Sure.
So the things I like to write about, things that are going on in my life and my own mental state.
Yeah.
So a lot of my songs are about different things that have gone on in my life, or different. Yeah, I've made this statement before, and I hate myself for doing it, but I'm gonna make it again. I like to. I like to. I shouldn't say I like to think, but I'm kind of the Taylor Swift of rap.
Right on, right
So
on. I'm going to have you elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so Taylor Swift, she writes a lot of songs about ex-lovers or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
So do I.
Running on the line, running on evil, praise weed, LSD, cause QCB, no lie. I keep letting I'm a die, and I know it, so I guess it's goodbye.
My first album was called Mental Case.
Okay.
And I wrote that whole album, most of it. I wrote most of that album actually while I was incarcerated. It wasn't like in prison or anything like that. I did.
Yeah.
I served 8 months in county jail.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into what for, because that's
sure.
very important.
No, yeah, it's not. Not at all.
I did. A lot of it was about the things that were going on at that point.
Sure.
And things I was dealing with and going through. So a lot of the songs, there's a couple songs in there, one of which is called Climate Changes.
Okay.
And I specifically remember this one I was sitting in my car waiting, because I was on work release when I was in jail.
Sure.
So I was coming back, and I was listening to this instrumental as I'm sitting in my car. It's a rainy night, and I think it was like midsummer, I think it was late summer, early fall.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my car, it's a rainy night, and I'm listening to this going, you know what? And I just wrote about an ex-girlfriend of mine who, we'll just say she was part of the reason I went to jail.
Sure.
But it was really, it's a really powerful song for me, and it's probably one of my favorite songs I've written to this day.
Yeah.
Because I talk a lot about my feelings, and I just kind of really let my feelings into that one.
Well, and that's the beauty of what you do, is like, yeah, we have those stories, that are, now that we have time to reflect on them and stuff, not that we're embarrassed about them, but it's just like, we've grown past that. So it's like, but those are the things that define us as artists, as we're making waves and making progress moving forward. So, you know, those kind of songs and those kind of true to yourself moments are huge. I mean, that's exponentially making you a better artist every day. Like,
you know, and it's like I said, you know, I put a lot of my heart and soul into this stuff.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And you know, music is the only thing that I like to do at this point, and I felt for a while that it's really the only thing that I'm good at.
If there's an overall message for this album, what do you think that would be?
So there's not so much a message behind it as I tried to tell more of a story with this one.
Sure.
The last 4 songs of the album are called When You Die, Into the Shadows, Paradise, and Breathe.
There you go.
I want to give a big shout out to Roc Studios, who was actually here earlier, but I don't know what happened to them. They must have dipped. Probably went back to Mankato. Shout out to Boomhouse Studios out in Bremerton, Washington. And shout out to B&E's own Papa Squat for helping me record some songs. This album wouldn't be possible. This album release party wouldn't be possible without all of you here. So I appreciate every single one of you coming out. More than you guys could ever know. I'm so happy that this album release is finally here, and this album is finally here. Thank you so much. Drive safe. Have a good rest of your night. Just breathe. In, out, just breathe. In, out, just breathe. In, out, just breathe. Sometimes I need to remind myself just to breathe in deep, cause reality hits me so hard, gives me anxiety, makes it hard to sleep, thoughts of mine put on repeat. Countless times I've counted sheep, nothing seems to work for me. Why is it so hard to see the good that lies inside of me? Reminiscing constantly about things of all varieties. My mind is a catastrophe, cataclysmic cacophony, thoughts and words reminding me to breathe. Just breathe. In, out, just breathe. In, out, just breathe. So breathe deep. In, out, just breathe. In, out, just breathe. Nothing makes any sense to me. Feel like I'm living in a dream, existential reality. This is my insanity plea. Can't do anything right. It seems like I am constantly scrutinized. Can't you see me through my eyes? I am not a bad guy. I'm just trying to live my life without having this pain to hide. Late at night I want to cry, cause part of me just wants to die. I just want to feel safe inside. So when I have these thoughts in mind, I have to go reflect within, and only then do I tell myself to breathe. In, out, just breathe. In, out, just breathe. In, out, just breathe. And for all my weed smokers out there, in, out, just breathe.
The night is done. How are you, man? How do you feel? I feel great. Little hoarse. All that work you put in, man, paid off tonight. I felt you. I know the crowd felt you, man. I can't wait to get back and listen to that shit over and over again. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, man. I'm gonna catch up with you in the future. It's been your boy, Mikey Nitro from the Urban Journal. My man E-Roc in the house.